Do you want a nearly unlimited supply of bounty tokens, patrol keys, and tonics for your Dauntless gameplay? This isn't a scam, this is Frostfall. You'll want to watch the other video launching with this one about the Frostfall goodies. Hello everyone, my name is Trevor, I go by TheMrTrails, welcome to the channel. Today we have Dauntless 1.8.4, bringing us snow in Ramsgate, the Frostfall event, Deep Frost Embermane changes, including its own weapon and armor set, a new perk, and more. This video will be about the more permanent changes, and there will be another video about Frostfall itself. Consider dropping a like for me, and if you're new, subscribe for more Dauntless updates like these. And if you want to support me and get ad-free viewing on these kinds of videos and your name in the credits, click the join button to become a channel member today for as little as 99 cents. And I can't believe I almost forgot about this, but it's been a year now since I've become a Dauntless partner, and it was all thanks to you guys. So first up on the agenda is Frostwülf. This behemoth was formerly known as Deep Frost Embermane. For those of you who didn't know, Deep Frost Embermane was originally intended to be named Frostwülf and serve as its own behemoth. And this does make some sense, because how can something that's frosty also have ember in its name? However, at the time, they felt it would be necessary that with a different name, they would have to give it its own weapons and armor for the behemoth. And since they were already making things for Urska at the time, they decided to go with Deep Frost Embermane as the name instead, so they didn't have to go with the weapons and armor. But now Deep Frost Embermane will be no more, and Frostwülf will be roaming around in its place. The behemoth itself will have some slight differences. It should only spawn Styxians, while in Aether mode now, they've changed some things about its stomps, and the big snowball that it sent at you is now a barrage of icicles. And something I noticed is that until you damage Frostwülf, it will basically just be an Embermane. But one of the main things that changes is Frostwülf will have its own part breaks, which you will use to craft its own weapons and armor. Let's take a look at them. Starting off, we have the Frostwülf's Bite Sword, then the Frostwülf's Chomp Axe, the Frostwülf's Slam Hammer, the Frostwülf's Skinner's Chain Blades, the Frostwülf's Rip Warpike, the Frostwülf's Chiller's Repeaters, and the Frostwülf's Tackler's Strikers. Each of the Frostwülf weapons will have Galvanized as the built-in perk, with the cell slots being an Insight and Fortitude slot. The armor for Frostwülf will be the Wolf Mane, Wolf Plate, Wolf Claws, and Wolf Paws. Rocking this armor set is the closest thing to getting a furry suit in the game. The boots have Cascade built in with a Brutality slot. The gloves have Galvanized built in with a Fortitude slot. The chest piece has the new Aegis perk with a Fortitude slot, and the helmet has the new Aegis perk with a Brutality slot. Side note here, before I explain what Aegis is, our simple English brains have been having a hard time pronouncing things that have been added to the game lately. Our last behemoth is officially named Savit, not Save It, not Savit, but Savit. And this perk, you might want to say Aegis, but it is pronounced Aegis. The Aegis is a form of protection for Zeus and Athena in Greek mythology, often being a shield or chestplate of armor. So it would only make sense for the Aegis perk in Dauntless would have something to do with shields. The Aegis perk will increase the shields received from any source. This will be by 11% at +3 and 20% at +6. This is basically the Bastion passive, and it works the same way, meaning that this unfortunately does not bypass a shield cap, meaning the shields from Bastion, Skarn Lantern, and Skarn weapons are still hard capped to their respective 500 and 600 shield gain total. However, it has a very interesting secondary ability at +6. If Aegis is the protection of gods in mythology, then this secondary ability kind of suits that purpose. After you've gained 1000 shields by any means, the next hit you take within 15 seconds of this will be completely ignored. And it's exactly what it sounds like. You don't take damage, you don't get staggered, you don't lose Predator, you're basically invincible for one attack. Now this won't work flawlessly at first. There are some attacks that have multiple hitboxes that might end up killing you, and this does not save you from at least Malkarian's grab attack. But the fact that there's now a literal god mode cell in the game is pretty interesting. Having the Aegis cell on the armor set is not the only way that Frostwülf sports a defensive style, however, because it has a defensive oriented unique effect. When using your lantern ability, you will create a frost geyser in front of you that will constantly deal damage. But when you or an ally steps over this frost geyser, you'll be given a shield that will stack up to 600, just like the Skarn unique effect. It will take longer to get to that amount of shield, but it is capable of dealing damage, which will make it a middle ground option between DPS and shielding, whereas the Skarn unique effect would be your top shielding option. Speaking of unique effects, 1.8.4 brings with it some unique effect balancing, as well as trying to balance out a couple of mods. Let's start with perhaps the biggest one, the Pangar unique effect. The Pangar unique effect is being reduced from 3000 or 4500 base damage down to 2500 or 3750 base damage when exploding the brand early. Is this enough to make it irrelevant? No, it will still be a pretty compelling choice of frost weapon. It's still going to deal stagger and wound damage on their respective weapons, which will still be one of the main selling points. The Phalanx unique effect catches up pretty close to it for core damage now though, after it receives a buff for 175 damage per missile up from 150. Pangar will still consistently be at the top end of the Phalanx UE damage, whereas you have the chance to not deal as much damage with the Phalanx UE as you should be, so the Pangar UE will still be generally better. Aside from those two, the remaining unique effects were attempted to be balanced out based on the weapon, so there's quite a few to go over. I'll be quick about it. For strikers, the Boreas unique effect got buffed to constantly generate frost sprites for 6 seconds after a surge. This shouldn't be meta because you don't want to be surging ideally, but this definitely makes it much better than it was. The Karabak unique effect got buffed. Previously you needed 25 hits to reach max spin speed, and now you'll only need 14. Karabak was already pretty good, but this makes it a bit better. And the Charog unique effect for strikers buffed, now only needing 75 stamina spent instead of 100. I feel like we're one Charog weapon buff away from it being meta on strikers, but I feel like Hellion strikers still take the win here. Next up, for Axe, Boreas sprites per charge level get increased from 1 to 2. This actually makes Boreas unique effect compete with the Riftstalker unique effect on Axe, and the only downside on the weapon is the conditioning, making Adrenaline hard to utilize. For Chain Blades, Blade Spin now gets a buff to the walking speed while using it, potentially can keep up with some of the part breaks now. Nothing about the heavy combo yet, but hopefully we'll get there. However, the Hellion unique effect gets 2 nerfs here, having its unique effect now proc on the 15th hit, as well as being decreased to 200 damage instead of 225. This nerf isn't as bad as it could be though, because they've actually given a minor buff to it by nerfing it. The unique effect proccing on 15 hits now syncs with Pulse 6, and while I'm pretty sure the DPS does still drop a bit, unlocking hit syncing is still pretty powerful. And if you're using Blade Spin Skullforge anyway, this isn't a huge issue for you. The Karabak unique effect was buffed for the Chain Blades as well, only needing 20 hits now to get max damage output instead of 38. Next up for Hammer, the Boreas unique effect gets bumped up to 2 sprites per ammo spent as well. This again makes it pretty even with the Riftstalker unique effect actually, and this bump gets it rather close to the Pangar unique effect too. It could probably even be better in some cases. And oddly enough, the Charog unique effect on Hammer gets a massive buff, only needing 50 stamina spent to activate. Molten Edict will still be the #1 hammer though. For Sword, the Keen Edge mod will now increase your movement speed by 25% for Oh wait, yeah, who cares? It's still the worst mod in the game. The Karabak unique effect was buffed to 8 hits for max damage instead of 10 on the sword, and the Boreas unique effect gets a nerf to the generation of frost sprites on sword. I'm pretty sure it's now 2 per second instead of 3 per second. It still looks to be slightly better than the Riftstalker sword even with this nerf though, and the Charog sword gets buffed to 75 stamina required to proc instead of 100 something. This looks like Charog sword now becomes a bit better than the Hellion sword, at least in fights that have less overpower uptime. The Repeaters get a buff to the Karabak unique effect, now needing 16 hits to proc, and the Charog unique effect goes down to 75 stamina as well. But I think this one's actually a lie because it seems like you only need 50 or 60 stamina. Either way, it's still not the best because you have to dodge to be able to spend stamina on Repeaters. And finally, we have the Warpike. The Executioner Spearhead mod is getting 2 buffs, but also 2 nerfs, which overall ends in a nerf to the mod. Executioner Spearhead now triggers when assisting on a wound, and each stack is worth 8% 10% damage. However, the stacks now last for 45 seconds instead of 2 minutes, and the max stacks gets reduced to 5 for a total of 40% damage. For more casual play, Executioner's Spearhead may have been better, but the trial meta has already been Munitions Amplifier anyway, so I'm not 100% sure the whole reasoning behind this. But the unique effects get changed as well. The Hellion Pike gets the same treatment as the Hellion Chainblades, 15 hits and 200 damage increase when the hit happens. Even though it still hit syncs with Pulse, this is definitely worse because it already did hit sync with only +3 Pulse. And the Charug unique effect goes to 75 stamina. So Spin to Win just seems to be more speedrun meta now, and Charug Pike might actually slightly outpace the Hellion Pike now. But Pangar Pike would still probably be better than both even after the nerf. But in some quick miscellaneous news, the Frozen status effect is gone, and whatever caused you to freeze will only cause you to chill now instead, except in the snowball fights. But by extension, the Warmth cell is now only coded to give you immunity to chilled at +6. There's now actually a UI element that will tell you if you have more than +6 of a perk, that a perk does not actually gain any more benefit beyond +6. Next up, a bunch of things now trigger Berserker that didn't before, and Savit is no longer able to sneak into Terra Escalation and counts as a shock behemoth properly. There are a lot of other miscellaneous fixes and changes, but I think I have the main ones out here for you, because that'll have to do it for this one. Be sure to check out the other video on Frostfall. Thank you guys very much for watching. Once again, consider dropping a like for me and subscribing to the channel if you are new. Big shout outs to all of the channel members for going the extra mile and supporting the channel, and big shout outs to everybody who helped me get this far in my Dauntless journey. Very much appreciated all of the support you guys have given me over the past year plus. And I have been Trevor, I go by the Mr. Trails, and I will catch you guys next time.